When was the last time you were around a fire? Not many of us will have had an open fire in our homes now for a while, especially when electricity and gas have their way, but I love a fire, especially when some peat thrown into the fire pit and I can enjoy the heat and the cool of the advancing night and losing myself in the thought as I stare into these flames here. Hopefully after lockdown I can sit around with family as we did before and have chat and reminisce and have some banter. Fire has that primitive appeal about who we are. It stirs within us both that sense of respectful fear and that warm comfort. Today is the day when many churches mark a special event called Pentecost, a day when God's Spirit comes in power on Jesus' first followers, and we read all about that in the book called Acts, written by Luke. We even read of tongues of fire resting on the first followers of Jesus. Very dramatic. And as a result, it was a day when the good news about Jesus spread like wildfire from Jerusalem to the ends of the earth, carried by followers filled with the power of the Holy Spirit. It's a great story when Jesus' followers turn from being scared, cowering individuals to being a bold band of brothers sharing what they had seen as the risen Lord. If the day were to be described like a fire, it would be like a roaring flame or even an explosion. Indeed, the word power comes from the same word we get dynamite. So an explosion is probably a pretty close description. And with any explosion like that, it would never be the same. But surprisingly, the day of Pentecost was not when the coming of the Spirit all started. If Luke's story is like an explosion, our story from John in our reading today is more like a spark or better still, a burning ember. Today's reading tells us of a quieter and more hidden way of the Spirit coming into our world. Jesus was the giver of the Spirit straight after Easter to these fearful followers hidden in a secret room in Jerusalem. We'll read about Jesus' simple words, receive the Holy Spirit. This is well before Pentecost. There was no shaking building, a rush of wind or tongues of fire. All that Jesus did was breathe on them. It may seem small and insignificant by comparison with the drama of the accounts in Acts, but breath was a powerful ancient image that resonates from the very creation story of our world. The word breath comes from the same word we get spirit. It was as if Jesus was saying, you are now a new creation, a second wave of Genesis people. It takes me back to my childhood, staring into the coal fire during the power strikes of the 70s, a different type of lockdown that forced families to be together. When in the cold winter evenings we as families would be forced to stay in one room to get heat and have some light. There was no TV, and having a candle in your bedroom was certainly not an option for a child. And remember, this time was well before even the imagination of internet was there. So when I was fed up with my toys, I'd go up to the coal fire and stare and breathe into the fire to see the change in the burning coal embers and see the falling glow make the fire burst into flame again with new lease of life. My breath gave life to that fire. So the image of breath here is very strong. Jesus' actions of breathing echoing back to the very genesis of our world when it describes God breathing life into our world by the Spirit. John was saying Jesus was the very source and spark to start a new creation, the seed of a new world where life will never be the same. The outcome of the first Pentecost was like the first season of that seed Jesus had sown, turning into a beautiful floral explosion of colour. If Jesus were to breathe new life into us, what does that actually look like in this new world? What is the heart of this kernel for us? Well, twice in our reading of only 4 verses, Jesus pronounced the powerful words of greeting. Peace be with you. Shalom. He sows a seed out of the suffering of Easter, and its very DNA is peace. If we are to be God's work in his new world, it will be born out of a life at peace with God, with others, and yes, ourselves. We can feel whole and complete. This is the tension we have. We need to allow that peace to rule our lives if we ever hope to blossom into the power we see on Pentecost. That's not easy, and Jesus knows why. And he shows that by talking about forgiveness, forgiveness is the key to unlocking peace. But more than that, he talks about how the power to forgive is in our hands. It's our responsibility that we have been left with. In this lockdown, I watched on a BBC iPlayer a critically acclaimed drama, televised last year actually, called The Victim. A challenging drama, and I won't spoil the plot, but at the heart of it is the lack of forgiveness and how, by not dealing with it, the characters were trapped in the world of being the victim, which led to the serious consequences in that story, in the drama. And in our story, there is a message which says, if you don't forgive sins, what are you going to do with them? The impact of the wrongs, the shortcomings, the poor choices are still effectively at our door. It's like rubbish not being picked up at the start of this lockdown. As the bins get full to overflowing, what do you do with it? It only piles up, and if left, it only becomes worse when it rots and smells or makes our place a mess. So there is another way. Through owning forgiveness, there is a way to peace and to be at peace. So this new world is where we can learn to live with ourselves, with others, and with God's world. It's a big ask. Some of us might not be at peace with ourselves. We don't like who we are or what we've seen in the mirror, the body we have, the looks that sag, the choices we make. We can't seem to be able to forgive or accept who we are or what we have become. It can unsettle us daily. So living a life of peace is a daily struggle. We need to give ourselves a chance. God has. So let's stop being so harsh on ourselves. Peace is a choice to accept ourselves as God accepted who we are from the very inception of us in our mother's womb. We are at peace with ourselves. If not, there is an opportunity to be giving peace a chance, unlocking forgiveness and forgiving ourselves in a way to peace. You can be a peacemaker. Another reason that we might not be at peace is that we are not at peace with others. Old hurts, unresolved forgiveness, broken relationships, all of them left unattended rob us of the peace we need. The very thought of someone who hurt us can disturb any sense of peace. I might hear you say, well, you don't know the half of it, Alistair, and I most likely don't. The inconsiderate neighbour, the ungrateful child, the toxic partner, the disappointed parent, the disloyal friend, and so the list is endless. But the failing to own our forgiveness can only build up the rubbish thoughts at the doorstep of our very being. We will always find our reasons not to forgive someone else, but in the end, if we don't, it is us who loses out on so much, when we have so much more to gain through peace, through forgiveness. We need to stop letting those people define who we are and create the new world Jesus offers to us to live in peace. Forgiveness will not fix the other person. Owning your forgiveness doesn't mean you have to be friends. That's a different journey, but it's how we instinctively respond inside. But it will start by fixing how we relate to others. Why? We're owning our forgiveness as Jesus has given his followers responsibility to forgive. Only then can we see what the influence of peace can have on others by the way we are. It's an opportunity to be giving peace a chance, to be peacemakers. Another reason that we might not be at peace is that we don't forgive God. We have issues of the life that we have and we blame God for it. We do not forgive God. We blame God for the way it's been dealt to us. Some of us might not be at peace with the very thought of God. where life and our lot in life has been a tough one. However, peace cannot be achieved when we compare our lives with others and point the finger at God. There will always be someone who we think has more, can do more, looks better, looks happier, looks more popular and looks healthier. Comparing ourselves with others' circumstances only leads to discontentment. Owning our forgiveness is an attitude that breaks those chains of discontentment and takes us to a place of contentment, which is a key to peace and being a peacemaker. Jesus came out of the lockdown of death to unlock peace, and for him to be at peace and offer peace, he had to forgive the Romans' duplicity, the Jewish religious leaders' murderous religious jealousy, his cowardly followers who ran away, Judas the betrayer, the fickle crowds who turned from cheers to jeers. Another reason that we might not be at peace is that we don't forgive God. And so we have those issues, and there's plenty that Jesus could have held onto in resentment. But instead, he let go and went completely in the other direction to deal with not only those wrongs, but all of humanity's. And the result is, he forgives us all. We can have peace, and we in turn can be peacemakers. If we want the power of the Pentecost, then we need to resolve the peace of Pentecost. The power of Pentecost is in the hands of Jesus' followers, the peacemakers. So here are some simple steps to being a peacemaker this week. Ask yourself, have I received God's Spirit so I'm more at peace? If not, just ask God now. Look in the mirror at the start of the day and say a blessing to yourself so you can be a blessing to others by simply saying, peace be with you. Think of the people who you find hard to forgive and start owning our forgiveness, and simply say in your attitude towards them, peace be with you. When we have unwelcome thoughts of revenge on someone else who has hurt us, pray a blessing on them by simply saying, peace be with you. And when we get involved in an argument, de-escalate the problem by asking yourself, how can I help this person feel more at peace? Jesus said, blessed are the peacemakers. So owning our forgiveness leads to Pentecostal power. Jesus will breathe new life into our very being. So, peace be with you. So take care, and God bless.